Sarah Rae, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Today is another true crime and makeup video. I want to again thank the incredible Bailey Sarian for the inspiration. Her videos, the research, time, and effort that goes into her videos are just incredible. If you are into true crime, you really need to go check out her videos. I will leave a link to her channel in the description box down below so you guys can go check out her channel. Now, today we are talking about Paris Bennett, and this is one of those cases, if you haven't heard about him, you're about to. You're not going to believe what you are hearing. It's one of those cases, and it's a case that as soon as I heard about it, I just kept researching. I was like, this can't be, there has to be something else here. And I watched so much of Paris, and I just couldn't believe what I was watching. It's just one of those type of cases. Oh my god. So I'm excited to bring it to you guys. Now, let's jump into today's video, and I'm going to tell you that this murder, it takes place on February 4th, 2007 in Abilene, Texas. So we're going back quite a ways away. So I hope you guys are ready. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications of when I upload, and let's get started. So Ella Lee Bennett is who unfortunately passed away in this case. She was only 4 years old, and she lived with her brother Paris Lee Bennett and her mother Charity Lee Bennett. And to understand really what happened that night in this case, I feel like you honestly need to go back into the past of Ella's mother Charity's to really understand. So let's talk about Charity for a little bit. So Charity was born to Bobby and Kyla Bennett in Georgia. Her dad owned a well-off trucking company, and when Charity was only 5 years old, her dad was murdered. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. But after that happened, Charity stated this, that she didn't really have a very stable or the best situations growing up. So during Charity's teen years, Charity did become addicted to drugs such as heroin by the age of 17. But even with all the troubles she faced, she did manage to graduate from school early with honors, which is so incredible. Her mom kicked her out though because of a few reasons. Their strained relationship being one, and the abuse with drugs. Eventually, Charity did become clean, but she fell into this really dark depression, and she made a pact with herself that in 3 years, if she didn't feel any different, she would take her own life. And it was during this time when she became pregnant with Paris, which she has stated had saved her life. So on October 10th, 1993, Paris Lee Bennett was born. And Charity stayed clean and focused all her love and attention on Paris. Let's talk about the person who took sweet little Ella's life and who saved Charity's life, and that would be Paris Lee Bennett. And Paris was incredibly smart. He had an IQ of 142, which, in case you didn't know, anything above 140 is considered a genius. 0.25 to 1% of the population has an IQ of over 140. So that means Paris is quite rare. Now, Paris's father didn't stick around very long, so he wasn't really in the picture. So Paris says growing up, he didn't have that great of a childhood. He says that he felt very left out and that he was alone a lot, but Charity says the complete opposite, that he had a very great childhood. He was very creative and very talented growing up. When Paris was 8, Charity became pregnant with another child, and that would be a daughter, Ella, sweet little Ella, and Paris was not okay with it. And Charity became very concerned, wondering how Paris would be when Ella was born. I mean, Paris wouldn't even feel the belly. He would leave the room whenever anybody would talk about the pregnancy. He was completely not thrilled about Charity being pregnant. But that all changed when Ella was born, which was on April 12th, 2002. And Paris did pretty much a 360. He was in love, a loving big brother to his little sister. And from the home videos that you can watch on YouTube, I would say that he was an incredible brother. They had things in common. Like, Ella's father didn't stay long in the picture either. The only difference when it came to that was Charity was married to Ella's father for quite a while, for a little less than a year, but for as close as Paris and Ella were, they were quite different when it comes to like personality wise. So Ella had this loud and infectious personality. She was bossy, she was opinionated, she was loving, sassy, so beautiful. And she loved butterflies, and her favorite color was purple. This little family was everything that Charity could ask for. She loved being a mother. Things, however, got hard for Charity for a bit, that she ended up relapsing with cocaine, and Paris found out and felt completely betrayed. However, he did help out and did a lot for Ella in that time, and thankfully Charity's relapse was only 6 months. It was very short-lived, and Paris didn't get any better, right? So he only grew darker and angrier. The family ended up moving around a lot after this, and they ended up moving in with Kyla, Charity's mother, and this was not a good idea at all. With the way Kyla and Charity's relationship was so strained, there ended up being a lot of chaos. Paris really started acting out. He would break things, he would bang his head against the wall, he wouldn't respond to being punished. He actually ended up one time grabbing a knife and would threaten almost like his mother and his grandmother, and then ran out of the house, and his family had to chase him. He was just waving it around. And Charity and Kyla did end up thankfully getting the knife off of Paris, but he only got worse mentally after that. So Charity did send him to the mental hospital to get him checked out, and it was there where he expressed a lot of homicidal ideations and suicidal thoughts. And when he was discharged, his mother says that she was not warned. She didn't know nothing about this, but Kyla says the complete opposite, that she knows for a fact Charity knew about it because they actually talked about it. Now, honestly, my thoughts on this whole thing, now I normally don't like to add my thoughts. I don't want to sway one side or the other. And this isn't me saying, oh, this is okay for what Paris did. No. But I do want to say that Paris was a minor. He was only, I think, 11 at this time. And it don't matter when a child is a minor, they have to discharge the minor to a parent or guardian. and they have to give kind of the lowdown on what happened. So because it is a minor, they give the information to the parent of what all that had happened. Also, if they express things of wanting to harm themselves or are a threat to themselves or people around them, they have to inform the parent or guardian simply to reduce that threat. Now, yes, workers are rushed at processes and they are overworked and do forget things. Sure, yes, it's happened. But when it comes to something like this, I can tell you, I was maybe 24. I was literally discharged to my mother as an adult because I had those thoughts and I still had to be discharged to somebody just to make sure my meds, because they were a threat to me, to make sure everything was going okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, is it likely she didn't know nothing? Very slim chance this happened, right? Okay? That's all I'm saying. And let's move on. Now, let's talk about that fateful night. It was February 4th, 2007. And Paris was 13 and Ella was 4. The family recently moved to Abilene, Texas. I always have to stop and actually think of how it's pronounced. Charity was working at a bar that night and it was Super Bowl weekend, so she was working late. There was a nanny at the house watching both Ella and Paris. That night the kids watched Alice in Wonderland, they ate dinner, and Ella went to bed and Paris just stayed up to do his homework. Eventually around 10 p.m., so for some reason my camera didn't record what I was going to say next, so I'm going to tell you now. A little after 10 p.m., Paris asked the nanny to leave, and she does. I don't know if it's because Paris is 13 and maybe she felt like Ella would be safe because of his age, or Paris is just that convincing. But that's what I was going to say here, so on with the next part of the case. Now, if it's something you don't think you can hear, I will give you a timestamp right here, and that's where you can fast forward on screen. Now, here we go. Paris went to the kitchen and grabs a kitchen knife. Then he heads to Ella's room where Ella was sleeping and begins to stab her 17 times. And this is where it becomes truly unbelievable and quite scary that it comes from a 13-year-old, because the stab marks, like the stabbing, it was not frenzied like you would think. It wasn't rushed or very deep like you would expect. Some were shallow, very controlled, methodical, slow, and not an uncontrollable rage, again, like you would think, and it unfortunately was fatal. After that, he made a 6-minute phone call to a friend and then made a 911 phone call, and I will play it for you now.
Abilene 911.
Hello?
Abilene 911, go ahead.
I accidentally killed somebody.
You think you killed somebody?
No, I know I did. I woke up and I was hallucinating.
You were hallucinating?
Yes, and I thought my sister was a demon and I killed her.
I want you to start CPR, okay?
No, I know for a fact that she's dead because
well, do you want to go ahead and try? It might still help, okay?
No, I don't think it'll help because...
Come on, Paris, work with me. I want you to put your hands on her chest, okay? And I want you to push 30 times. I want you to count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Paris?
You put it down.
So the police went to the bar where Charity worked and told her that Ella had been hurt, and Charity's first instinct, of course, was to ask to go to her baby girl, of course. And that is when they informed her that Ella had been killed, that she passed away. And Charity was confused. She then asked where Paris was, thinking that, you know, something happened to her kids. Somebody may have hurt all her kids, you know. Of course, that is, you know, understandable, right? And that is when they told her that they had Paris at the station and that he was the one who did it. And that is when her world came crashing down. That is when her world stopped making sense. And she asked first to be taken to see Ella, to accept the fact that she was gone. It wasn't until 5 a.m. that she was actually allowed to see Ella. When she was brought out, they only showed her face. The rest of her was covered. She started kissing Ella's face, crying, saying that she was sorry. After a few hours, she said she was in to see Paris because that was her only child left. Police said during Paris's interviews, his story changed slightly, and they were already sus of Paris because of the fact that he stated that he was doing CPR, but they could prove that he never did CPR. So they were already like not believing Paris's actions, right? He was trying to cry, but he wasn't. They were already seeing through Paris's like act, right? So Ella's autopsy came back and it showed, again, if you guys can't hear this, I will put a timestamp right here, but it showed that she had been beaten, strangled, and stabbed 17 times. And I want to make something very clear because this gets put in a lot of videos about this case and said in a lot of articles, and it's not true, but they like to say that Paris raped Ella, and that is not true. They found semen on the bed sheets, and there was semen found in Paris's short, but they did a rape kit on Ella and they found it to be negative, so this did not happen. So anybody watching this, know that Paris did watch R-rated videos before, and he also watched snuff films, which if you don't know what that is, don't look it up. The first time Paris and Charity, like, they really got to be alone, Charity hugged him and she was almost hysterical to see him, you know? And she said she remembers that he wasn't exactly hugging her back. And she said it almost felt like his mask fell off. Like he became a different person. He was cold. And he said to her, and this is a quote, he said, "You would always said you never would be able to kill someone unless they hurt one of your children. So what are you gonna do now?" Ooh, Paris, he never said sorry. He had no remorse. He wasn't scared. He showed like no emotion. And Charity did confront Paris for what he did. She thought that he really did it on purpose, because in the phone call to 911 he said that he killed her for like thinking that she was a demon. And so she confronted him for exactly what it was, and she did it outright. She also confronted him for watching the R-rated films and the semen found on the bed. And he laughed at her and said, and I'm going to cuss here, so sorry. He said, "It took you fucking long enough." And as for the sexual nature part of it, he got so mad that people thought he did it for sexual pleasure. and he was enraged. He flipped over the table. Like, he got mad about it. Like, dude, we know, we saw your history. We know there was semen found. We know it was sexual in nature. Chill out. So 6 months later, Paris went to trial, and Charity didn't know where exactly to sit, because leading up to this date, there was times where she had to be Ella's mother when she would go and have to fight for, you know, Ella. And there were times where she'd have to go and be Paris's mother. And, you know, so when it came to where she'd have to sit in the courtroom, she just grabbed a chair and sat straight in the middle of the two tables, because she wasn't going to choose between her two children. And I understand that, I guess. You know, how can you love both your children? And for her, she loved them no matter what. And it's hard to understand how she felt and where she's coming from when you're an outsider looking in, you know? The Bennett family didn't want him to get off with what he did. They wanted him to go to get help for what he dealt with mentally. And that meant to maybe go to a mental hospital. So they felt that going to just prison, that he wouldn't get the help he needed. And I can see that. I mean, they felt if he got out from prison and committed murder, it would be on the prisons, because he's not getting the help that he needs. So after the trial ended, it was quite black and white. I mean, there was a case, a murder, killer, the killer confessed. I mean, case closed. And Paris pleaded guilty, so he got 40 years, which is the max for a 13-year-old. And remember, he was 13 years old. My God. Like, you hear all this stuff and you forget that he was only 13 years old when all this happened. So he will be up for parole in 2027, which is when he is 33. And that's quite soon. So something I want to share with you is they did do a few tests on him while he was in prison, and they found out that he has narcissistic traits, and he also has all traits of a psychopath, which honestly, if you ever watch him speak, you will see it. While he was in prison, at the beginning of him being put into prison, he didn't allow Charity to even see him. But eventually that changed and he allowed her to see him. But him trying to find ways to hurt her didn't. So he did end up telling her why he killed his little sister, sweet little Ella. And he said the reason was because he wanted to get back at her for relapsing. He felt like he wanted to punish her, and the best way to do that was to take away both her children. And what best way to do that is to kill his sister and send himself to jail in one fell swoop. I can't believe that, and that he could think about that. I just don't understand. So Charity did end up having another kid, and his name is Phoenix. And at 6 days old, he had to have open heart surgery because he was born with a heart defect. And Charity has said that she's never heard Paris cry the way he did when he found out about Phoenix having to have heart surgery. And she knows the way he cries, so she knows that he was crying for real. But he felt like he was to blame for Phoenix to have open heart surgery and to have this birth defect because of what he did. And I guess that's remorse, right? I don't know. He could be faking it. But he calls Phoenix, now that Phoenix is older, and he writes them letters all the time, and there's some letters that he doesn't want Phoenix to read until he's older, so they keep them for him in a box for him to read when he's older. So that's interesting. The reason I think it's interesting is because would you allow the son that killed your daughter to talk and write the son you now have? I don't know. I know that she's having as much time with Paris as she can right now, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But so I did watch the Piers Morgan interview called Psychopath with Paris Bennett, and you can find some clips of it on YouTube. I do gotta say, I find it very interesting. I think it really shows some of Paris's true colors. You can see that he is very intelligent, especially the way he talks. I think a lot of people overanalyze the way he talks and just goes right straight to, oh, the way he talks, he's a psychopath. No, the way he talks is very intelligent, and he is very well-spoken, and I think he thinks first before speaking. And yeah, that could be a trait of a psychopath, but I also think that is someone who has an IQ of 142. You know, like, they don't stop to think about that first. But you also gotta think that, yeah, he also has traits of a psychopath. And there's something that he said in that interview that really makes me go, that's interesting that you say that. And it's that he says in that interview that when the cops came, that it was all about the way they looked at him, the way they thought about what he did. And I'm like, oh, about what you did, but it's not about what happened to your sister or anything. I thought that was really interesting with the way he looked at things. And I think that shows a trait of a psychopath, is that or more of a narcissist, because he has that trait. I think it could be both, but he wasn't worried about his sister, he was worried about the way that they were going to look at him. I thought that was interesting, and I felt like that's always really overlooked. And then, yeah, there's the part where he doesn't know how to explain love, and there was just, I think you guys should definitely go online and look up Piers Morgan and Paris Bennett full interview and find it, because it is incredible to watch, truly. To just see the way he talks, it's incredible. The last thing I want to leave you with is that Paris may not be the only murderer in the family. Remember I told you that we would talk about Kyla's husband, Charity's father, how he was murdered? Yeah, well, they thought that Kyla is the one who did it. And she was actually on trial for it. And when she was put in the back of the police car, the police officer said she had a look of being pleased with herself. And that's actually the same look that they said Parrot had when he was put in the police car, which is quite interesting. But Kyla did get cleared in a court of law, so please remember that when this is being talked about. But there's a video clip, I will link it in the description box down below, of her where she says how everybody is a good manipulator. She says that Charity was a good manipulator, Ella was a good manipulator, Paris is a good manipulator. Her other daughter, Charity, wasn't as good of a manipulator as the rest of the family. That's because Kyla doesn't do it as much anymore. And she goes, she has no reason to. She don't have a company to manipulate. She don't have drivers to manipulate. I don't have a jury to manipulate. And then she smiles. And I'm like, did she just, I see what you did there. Did you just nod at that you did it? Now remember that that's speculation, that's allegedly. Okay, we can speculate, we can think about it. That is not an official thing that she actually murdered. Okay, I'm not saying that. That is my speculation that she could have. We don't know, okay? But that's quite interesting. I will link that video for you guys to take a look at if you really are interested in looking at it. But it's so interesting. But anyways, in the end, there will be a day that Paris will get out. Whether it's 2027 or 40 years from now, 2047. But Charity knows her life will be in jeopardy. She thinks that Phoenix's life won't be. Everybody thinks that if he kills somebody else, it will be Charity, and that she will one day have to choose between her two sons. So again, right now she's just really taking all the time she can to spend with Paris. When the time comes, she says she will choose Phoenix. Charity did create the Ella Foundation, and it's where she does her best to prevent violence by sharing her story. So she does classes, she does speeches, she does anything she can really to share her story to stop any situation like this from happening, which I really am happy for. Like, you know, any way to, you know, prevent something like this from happening. But there's so much in here where I'm kind of have my own opinions on, especially, you know, when it comes to Paris. And there's things about Phoenix that I have my own opinions on, and Charity, but that's everybody. We're all gonna have our own opinions when it comes to something like this. So what would you guys do? If you have kids and one of your kids kills another one of them, would you stay in that kid's life? Would you do what she did? Let me know. Let me know your guys' opinion on this case. So I hope you guys found this case quite intriguing, and thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are staying safe and well. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.